Rama Rama Ram Sita Ram 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 Hare Rama Rama Ram Sita Ram 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 Rama Rama Ram Sita Ram 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Ram Sita Ram 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 सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, बोलो भाई सब संतन की जय। श्री राम जय जय राम। लाउडली श्री राम जय जय राम। 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 श्री राम।
Hari Om everyone. Can you all hear and listen and see me clearly? Awesome. Good to see all of you. Still more participants might be joining. Please turn your videos on. We have seen till the 22nd shloka in ātmabodha. So we will be continuing with 23rd and 24th. Today, Hari Chaitanya, Brahmachari Hari Chaitanya, he will not be joining us. So after the invocation, Divya will lead the shlokas and I will repeat it after her. And then Divya will go the first down batsman, and then I'll be the runner up, and try to cover the 2 shlokas scheduled for today. Hope you are all doing well and planning for your summers. When you plan for your summers, keep in mind that this year's Mahasamadhi camp is organized and hosted by us in Dallas. And if everything goes well, Pujya Swami Swarupananji will be joining us here in Dallas. That's like a win-win situation. So keep your calendars marked. It will be the Mahasamadhi camp, July 29th through August 3rd. So be here, and I'm counting on you. So let's be square on that. Otherwise, people say be here or be square. No, I'm counting on that, that you'll be here. So without much ado, let's begin today's satsang with the invocation. Please join me. सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। One second, Divya. Please go ahead.
Okay. We'll start with the first verse, correct? Tapo bhikshina papanam shantanam vitaraginam mumukshunam apekshuyam ātmabodha vidhiyate. So now this is verse 23. Rāgecchāsukhaduḥkhādi
rāgecchāsukhaduḥkhādi
buddhau satyāṃ pravartate.
buddhau satyāṃ pravartate.
Suṣuptau nāsti tannāśe.
suṣuptau nāsti tannāśe.
tasmādbuddhestu nātmanaḥ.
tasmādbuddhestu nātmanaḥ.
prakāśo'rkasya toyasya.
prakāśo'rkasya toyasya.
śaityamagneryathoṣṇatā.
śaityamagneryathoṣṇatā.
svabhāvaḥ saccidānanda.
svabhāvaḥ saccidānanda.
nityanirmalatātmanaḥ.
nityanirmalatātmanaḥ.
Okay. So up until now, we've been given statements of facts. Atman is satyam, jagat, jiva is mithya. The restlessness and unpeaceful experience that we have is because of the ignorant superimposition of the unreal as the real. So specifically last week, we saw that we superimpose the guna and karma of the deha and the kartrutva bhava of the mind on the Atman because of ignorance. They do not belong to Atman. So a very important logic is given in today's verse. And what I'd like to do is take both of the verses together in meanings and then tie them together. So in verse 23, we saw rāgecchāsukhaduḥkhādi pravartate buddhau satyāṃ. So all of this list, raga, ichcha, sukha, and dukkha, and etc., they express when the mind functions. Suṣuptau, in deep sleep, tat, and this refers to buddhi, tannāśe. So when the mind, and I would like to add the word complex, so the entirety of the mind complex dissolves, nāsti. So this raga, ichcha, sukha, and dukkha, they're not there anymore. And again, one comment here, nāśe means that when it's kind of folded up and dissolved, not that it's completely destroyed and, nāśe, it's never coming back. And it's not in that sense. We're looking at suṣuptau, in sleep. So what happens then? Tasmād, therefore, buddhastu, the guna and karma and the bhavas that we saw are of the mind, nātmanaḥ, not in the Atman. In the next verse, ārkasya svabhāvaḥ prakāśo'rkasya. So the luminosity is the nature of the sun. Toyasya, so the coolness of the water, the coolness is the nature of water. Śaityamagneryathoṣṇatā agnehe, so heat is the nature of fire. So in that same svabhāvaḥ, when we want to understand the svabhāvaḥ, what is the svabhāvaḥ of Atman? Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nitya, and Nirmala. These are the svabhāvaḥ, or the nature of Atman itself. And it's important because, again, remember, ātmabodha is giving us the fundamental principles, right? In tattva-bodha, we learn terminologies. Here, we're learning fundamental principles. So this list is very important to remember. Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nitya, and Nirmala are svabhāvas of Atman. So just to process all of these examples together, a thing can have a certain quality. And we say that the thing is there when we experience those qualities. When the thing is removed, the qualities are also removed there. So this presence and absence correlation is the key to understanding what quality belongs to what thing. So when fire is there, heat is felt. When fire is not there, there's no heat. So heat must belong to fire. When light is there, luminosity is observed. When light is not there, luminosity is gone. So therefore, luminosity belongs to light. And the same logic is used for raga, ichcha, sukha, and dukkha. When the mind is present and functioning, we see its full expression. But in deep sleep, when the mind is all folded up, so is all of its expressions. It's gone. So a 2-year-old, right, cannot exist without his little binky, the teddy bear, right? He has to have it everywhere he goes. If it's missing, that's it. His wrath knows no bounds. But as soon as he's exhausted and passes out in his bed, sprawled out, the drool is oozing from his mouth, where is that binky? It's on the floor, discarded like it's some sort of rug, right? Where is that kid's raga and sukha, ichcha and dukkha? It's all folded up when he's asleep. We're no different. Our entire construct of who we are, the dynamics I have with people and the world around me, the wants that I have, the hates that I can hold on to, it's all neatly folded up and it's become null and void when I sleep. So again, this is that understanding of when I observe a quality, where does it belong? Now, what about Atman then? Up until now, we were told that, okay, this is not Atman, that is not Atman. So we've gone through that kind of analysis. We are given here in this verse decisively that what is Atman in an assertive sense? It is Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nitya, and Amala. or nirmala, sorry. Again, let's try to use the same kind of logic to understand this. And well, let's take one of them. If Atman is the nature of existence, Sat, it is not possible for existence to be finite. It cannot be anitya. So I wanted to bring this example of this marker. I hope everyone can see this, right? Does the marker exist? Yes, every single part of it exists. What about the space next to it? Does that exist? Yes, and I can go on infinitely saying one next to the other, everything has existence. But if I were to turn around that question and say, okay, what if it's not in space? What's next to it? Okay, there's a vacuum, there's nothing, nada, zilch, nothing exists. That last sentence right there doesn't make any sense. I said, nada or zilch exists, nothing exists. Just for me to even say it out loud, I have to use the word existence. It's almost impossible to describe anything without existence being there already for me to point at it. So if this has to exist, that has to exist, the next thing has to exist, everything has to have existence. Where does existence stop? Is there an end to it? No. So it has to be nityam. There's no other possibility for me to wrap my mind around how can existence be anitya? It has to be nityam. So just simple logical like vichara on those statements and adjectives itself. How can Atman be Sat and Nityam? How can Atman be Sat and Amala? How can it be Chit? How can it be Ananda? For each one, I have given the infinite possibilities to apply my mind on it, right? And when we try, it should boggle our mind. It should twist it up like we're playing Twister, and it should like rattle our mind. And it's a good thing because this is our sadhana. The effort that we put in is to occupy our mind so that it can focus as much as it can on the highest. And again, between these two verses, we're given the process of negation and the process of assertion. Let me sit down and analyze from every aspect of what I take myself to be, the ragas, the ichas. Let me witness it. Let me look at it. Am I pushed around by the pendulums of sukha and dukkha? How am I actively pushing and pulling because of that? When I start to, at every point, say, this belongs to the mind, this does not belong to me, it starts to give me the ability to separate myself from it. And by separating it, I'm stopping extra forces being applied to that pendulum, and eventually it will calm down. When it's in a relatively calm state, I'm actually able to take my mind and apply it in the assertion. What does Sat mean? What does Chit mean? What does Ananda mean? How can everything be consciousness? And start to apply and identify what is Atman. And so this is a sadhana that's also given to us. It also gives us the fundamental principles given by our Shrutis, but it is our work and our abhyasa to start practicing it little by little. With that, Swamiji, I'll pass it to you.
If this were a relay race, I would have already lost 3 seconds to 4 seconds. Because there are so many steps that I have to go. I have to unmute, I have to put a spotlight. Anyways, 3 seconds is not much. In this particular segment of ātmabodha, Bhagavan Bhashyakara, especially in this particular work, he is saying that Atma Chaitanyam Ashritya Dehendriya Manodhyah Swakiyartheshu Vartante Surya Lokam Yatha Janaha. That we take the support of this Atma Chaitanya, without which there is no possibility of any movement in this layer of matter. That is our matter of discussion. Kenopanishad starts with this very question. Keneshitam vacham imam vadanti केन प्राणः प्रयति प्रयुक्तः. By whose presence, by whose will, by whose order, by whose source do these organs of perception and action, do this mind, prana, everything moves? The question itself shows the amount of intense manana that student must have gone through. Because a layman who listens to Vedanta will understand that karmendriya, jnanendriya, to a certain point, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara also can be understood. We get confused when you say prana also. When you do the prana shakti avahana, and people say that in a very poetic order, they say pran pakheru, like prana has left the body. Prana is the most tangible aspect of the subtle world. Therefore, we refer to it. It doesn't mean that Atma is prana. In the presence of that Atma Chaitanya, prana shakti is invoked. So all of these layers, so the student is asking in Kenopanishad, very, very astute, very, very keen observer. He's saying, Bhaiya, this whole thing, this field of matter, including the pranas, because prana is also matter. Prana Shakti, when you say Shakti translating to energy, many of us make that mistake where we say, oh, Bhagwan is supreme energy. No, he is not supreme energy. Then what is he? He is the beholder of that energy. शिव शक्ति दोनों अलग हैं पर एक हैं. Shakti is the expression aspect. But when I withdraw that Shakti, do I still persist to exist? Or as soon as I withdraw my Shakti, I'm gone. Now I have my speech. I'm speaking. When I withdraw, when I say मुझे नहीं बात करना, what do I thap? Dead, gone? No, because Shakti, I can exist independent of it. But when I have to express, I express through that Shakti. First point. The second point to understand is the entire field of matter, whether it is subtly expressing as Shakti or grossly expressing as material, it is made up of 5 elements. Panchabhautika, Panchikrita Panchamahabhuta, Sammilita Prapancha. That is why it is called Prapancha. Prakarshena Prakatita Pancha Mahabhutaya. 5 elements in an seemingly unending permutations and combinations. It expresses in multitude. But it is nonetheless matter, even if it is subtle. That concept has to be understood very clearly. Energy is not Atma Chaitanya. Even that energy is something which is held by that Atma Chaitanya. When I say in its presence, it exists. Now, when he says Dehendriya Mano Buddhi Ityadi Atma Chaitanyam Ashritya, taking the support They're taking a refuge in that Atma Chaitanya for their movement, action, and expressions. But being so close, intimate, almost one with it, we seldom see the difference. Based on our purva abhyasa, earlier experiences, it may be erroneous. It is erroneous. But because of that purva abhyasa, we jump to conclusions that whenever there is any kind of change, morph, or deviations, we fall prey to it and we say that, hey, this whole thing is me. So when we do study Vedanta, Advaita-Vedanta, the logic that is taken up is to understand. Why is understanding given such keen importance? Because in the name of spirituality, we forget a lot of things. We consider the cleansing steps as the ultimate. ये बोलते रहते हैं लोग, इससे अच्छा भक्ति है, केवल भक्ति करो, बाद सब कुछ हो जाएगा. भाई भक्ति इज नॉट जिंदा तिलिस्मान कि सर दर्द, पीठ दर्द, पेट दर्द, सब फॉर एवरीथिंग यू अप्लाई द सेम मेडिसिन. सब रोग का एक इलाज नहीं होता. Whether it is karma yoga, and bhakti is also a part of that karma yoga, any kind of action for that matter, these are preparatory steps to prepare one's own intellect to come to the point where it subtly grasps this understanding. And that is the key. Why is it the key? Because the lock, which is the intellect, which is in a wrong conviction, ajnana vashat, where is the confusion? In the intellect. So where should the clarity be provided? Wherever that lock is, the key has to go in there. I cannot say that, many who jump to the conclusion through yoga where it says it is about yogaha chitta vritti nirodha. There chitta vritti nirodha, there is a beautiful explanation given. It is that which is the unwilled mind that has to be snapped, that has to be removed. Nirodha doesn't mean that it is completely annihilated. But when people come to the conclusion that the whole purpose is to become no mind, so jao. If the purpose of spirituality is to reach to a state of no mindness, eat nice curd rice with lemon pickle, a combination is good. The foodie in me comes out. Eat nice quantity of that curd rice. In Tamil they would say tachimamu. So eat that and then you will have such a tamas develop that you will fall asleep where buddhi is non-functional. Layam yati, we will come to that portion in the next sloka. There is no mind. If that is what you want to achieve, you don't need to do kapalbhati, bhasrika and twist your body in separate different kinds of yogasanas and then do different kinds of mudras. No, nothing of that is required. Bhar pet khao, kharate maar ke so. You have reached to the state of no mind, if that is what you call a spirituality. So our goal is not about reaching to no mind state. In fact, we need that mind. We are not trying to annihilate it. There's a certain wrong groove that it has gone in. We have to mend it. Like, when you have a cap of a bottle and you're trying to insert it and it goes in a wrong thread and after a turn or two you realize that it is not sitting well, it has gone a little. So what you do, you open it all the way and you hear that click. That means it has fallen in the groove. Then you tighten it. When it just happened to be there, I used it as an example. It was not a prop that I was waiting to use here. Ho gaya waise. So similarly, we have to unscrew the mind from its wrong groove that it has gotten fixed in. Very painful. So you have to undo it. So you'll hear many people say, spirituality means it is not about doing, it is about undoing, which is very apt. Because the undoing happens in the conviction level. But at each level, whether it is with the deha, even before deha, the karma, then the deha, the jnanendriya, karmendriya, then we went through the layers of mana. Here, I'm still baffled every time that I read ātmabodha, that there is this reference to the earlier shloka, which I mentioned in the beginning of my last week's, is he talks about in the last shloka, the kartrutva bhoktrutva as the mana. Technically, kartrutva bhoktrutva is not the aspect of mana, it is the aspect of buddhi. Raga, ichha, sukha, dukkha, ityadi, they belong to the field of mana, and the kartrutva bhoktrutva has to be in the field of buddhi. I'm still baffled, as I said. That is my disclaimer. If you are keen enough to observe that and say, but Swamiji, why did this happen? There's only one person that can answer this, and he ain't around. The author. So I'll just take it to the sequence. The point there again is, what does raga, dvesha, and how does it function in the buddhi? Raga, ichha, sukha, dukkha, ityadi, buddhau, satyāṃ pravartate. In the buddhi, as long as the buddhi is awake. See, I have to start that whenever I start it. Evening yajnas. So 7:30 to 9 is the usual schedule. Those 5-10 people that used to come, some of them, after a long day's work, understandably so, must have been hungry, so they quickly finished their dinner and then come to the satsanga, come to the jnana yajna. And one of the key benefits of satsanga is people go forward. When I say go forward, that they go into a deep, not meditative state, a slumber. And sometimes it is awkward because you have to maintain a straight face and not even have a smile, making them feel more awkward. There is a slight snore also you hear. The roar of the snore also is heard. Usually that gentleman or that lady's spouse is sitting right next. They give a nudge and wake them up. And all this is happening right in front of you, and you have to look past them, look through them. So what happened at that point in that satsanga? Buddhi was absent. Whatever I spoke never reached. Why? The buddhi was in laya sthiti. Here nāśe doesn't mean that it has been destroyed. The word nāśa can be used in so many different shades of meaning. I mean, you should be knowing it better. In this country, words have been ruined so efficiently. They say that, hey, oh Swamiji, you are so sick. And I say, no, I am healthy. No, Swamiji, sick means that you are awesome. I said, which Sikh mind will say that? And that is how I used to think. Like I still get confused when I ask, can I serve you more? Do you want to eat more? My question is very specific, unambiguous. The answer is the most ambiguous answer that people give. I'm good. But I didn't ask whether you're good or bad. It's confusing. They change the meaning of the words. Maybe they have added few shades to it. Similarly, in Sanskritam, when nāśe is used, yes, annihilation is one meaning. The other meaning of it, especially here, specifically here, it means, nāśe means that it has gone into the state of laya. Laya meaning non-functional state. It has been absorbed. When you wake up, it again springs forth from there. Completely absorbed, soaked in ajnana. That's why the deep sleep state, Bhagavan Bhashyakara in Tattva-bodha says, Aham kimapi na janami maya sukhena nidra anubhuyate. I absolutely know nothing. I had good deep sleep. Why? That with which we usually function is the buddhi. That buddhi recognizes and decides that was non-functional. It had been absorbed. So what happens to that aspect of the gunas or the modifications of this buddhi and its functionality? Like how raga like, or attachment, ichha, desire, sukha. Now what is the opposite of raga? It's not vairagya. The opposite of raga is not viraga. Raga opposite is dvesha. Ichha, anichha, sukha, dukkha. All of this happen in the antakarana. Right? When that antakarana is available in the waking. And it is a tornado in its own. Each one of them keep Gurudev's words in, I think, Bhagavad Gita or self-unfoldment. He says, it is tossed like the rudderless boat in the most chaotic oceans. Rudder is what which gives direction to the boat. But when that does not have that rudder, that boat gets thrown. The wheel is not there, or the wheel is jammed. So the rudder cannot be moved. So it wherever the wind takes, wherever the waves toss, our condition is similar. When there is this sukha and dukkha, what happens to us? We become sukhi or dukhi. Therefore, sukha is not my nija swarupa. Therefore, in English, when I translate sukha, I am very careful. I don't use the word happiness. I say joy. The joys of life. That which I anticipate and enjoy. Right? We use the word enjoy. Where does it come from? It comes from joy. So I anticipate that enjoyment, therefore I put that effort, and in that anticipation of sukha, the joy. What is the opposite of it when I don't meet it? There is disappointment, disenchantment, there is irritation, frustration, anger. Each one is a tornado. So where is that? All of this in the buddhi. So you can see the restless person, एक खिचड़ी पक रहा है अंदर, pressure cooker, and the valve is jammed. You know, when that pressure CT was done, that weight goes up, that is jammed inside. Some food particle must have gone and stopped. So what happens inside? It is building and building and building. The fire is already there. And inside also is like that. People warn us. I've heard people say, "Erik, ज़्यादा दिमाग पका मत आज, बहुत खिसकेला है." This is a typical Bombay language. Whenever I see somebody from Bombay, that language just flows out. आप उनका भेजा खिसकेला है आज, ज़्यादा पकाने का नहीं. They warn you. Why? There is that pressure building up. And we don't teach, we don't learn how to channelize this pressure. And there are ruptures after ruptures at each level. Everybody wants a quick solution. To ease out from that pressure, dukkha nivritti, we need some shortcut. So, long time ago, after listening to the Vedanta class, it was a camp. There was this brilliant seventh grader. This was in Bombay, actually Lonavala. And in that camp, after the lectures in evening times, they had to present some cultural. So this fellow said, "My poetry padega." We were very we don't know what kind of poetry will come out. These days poetry is so pathetic. Tu ladka, mai ladki, tu raja, mai rani, and it goes on and on and on. So we were little anxious ki ab kya bolega. The first poem that he read, two lines. He said, "मंत्री वो जो प्लस लेता माइनस देता, वो है आज का हमारा नेता." जो प्लस लेता माइनस देता, वो है हमारा आज का नेता. Everybody clapped. Then the second he said, problem किसको नहीं है, बस सिंपल सॉल्यूशन है. सेवेंथ ग्रेडर, he said, पिल्लो या पी लो. Sleeping pill. You pop one, you're knocked out, you're done. Or you are that person that you hit the sack and within 2 minutes you can start snoring away. Very blessed people these people are. That at will they can sleep. And the third one, they get into that slumber, pillow. Pillow matlab the liquid spirit, liquid spirituality. One way or the other, you want to get rid of this Buddhist functionality so that you can feel a sense of relief from it. See, my kind of way of working and functioning is, if there is a problem, I have to sit down, write down if necessary, and look at all possible angles and start thinking about solutions. As long as I don't see solutions, my hunger, thirst, sleep, they can wait. That is how my training works. There are these blessed fellows, I tell you. In the middle of thick of real, problematic situation, I've seen these people. It amazes me. बहुत टेंशन हो रहा है, मैं जाके सो जाता हूं. अरे टेंशन है तो सो कैसे सकते हो? But these people can. They switch it off and then they go sleep. What they are trying to do is to get to that state where this doesn't bother anymore. So suṣuptau na asti. all these different features of the buddhi or untrained buddhi are non-existent. See, here in this particular shloka, the Nayayikas, those who follow the Nyaya, they believe that all these facets that which we see in the buddhi is usually attributed to the Atma Tattva. That Atma is Saguna and Atma has these kinds of qualities. So it expresses itself as Ragi, Dveshi, Kami, Akami, Sukhi, Dukhi. All of these are the qualities of Atma Tattva only. So Bhagavan Bhashyakara is taking them to task, saying, Bhaiya, how can this be the qualities of Atma Chaitanya? It is like a switch. You turn the buddhi off and you are in deep sleep. None of these bother. See, most of you, all of you have raised children. There are days when the kid has had everything. Well, they're still very, very young. But they get to that state of, because they're tired, they don't know how to say it, they get cranky. They start throwing tantrums. Rona, dhona, sab kuch. So the mother understands, if this fellow is getting to this state of crankiness, it only means what? The fellow has to be put to sleep. And then that little toddler is taken and mama starts singing. That fellow thinks, अरे बाप रे, no, I have to, इसको भी झेलना है, नहीं, मैं सो जाता हूँ. And the fellow goes to sleep. Next day wakes up, doesn't even remember the crankiness. So these patterns have been there when we were kids, when we are now as adults. These patterns seem to exist continuously, but they seem to be absent the moment the buddhi falls asleep. The moment buddhi goes to sleep. Even in that suṣupti avastha, and that is the key part here, pay attention, very, very subtle point. If we want to understand Shuddha Atma Chaitanya Tattva, it can be understood only in the example of suṣupti avastha. Rest of the places it is confusing. In suṣupti avastha it is not confusing. Not when you are in suṣupti avastha. When suṣupti avastha is taken for discussion as an example. There's a difference, Baba. So when you take that as an example, what happens in that example? How do I know when I wake up that there was sleep? Buddhi is absent, right? And that is how I recognize everything. Then how did I decipher that I was asleep? See, when the buddhi is awake, there are the transactions happening constantly, whatever be the transactions. Raga, dvesha, kama, akama, sukha, dukkha, there is a lot of things that are happening. There is a transaction. And that transaction is being illumined. What is suṣupti? Suṣupti is defined as the absence of this buddhi vyavahara. Meaning what? When all these movements cease to be, that is when we are in suṣupti avastha. That absence of transaction is also being illumined. Therefore, I can remember that I slept well. Alas, it was a class, but I did sleep well. Who is it that is illumining that buddhi when it is not having a transaction and it is deep in sleep? That who is illumining even the deep sleep is called Shuddha Atma Chaitanya. Therefore, these qualities of buddhi cannot be attributed. Hey Naiyayikas, these attributes cannot be attributed to the Atma Chaitanya. Those belong to this Antakarana level only. And that Antakarana is of the nature of vritti. So the sukha that is happening, it is ata jata nature. It comes and it goes. It is not permanent. But whereas when we talk about the ananda, ananda should not be translated as joy. Ananda means that which is the nature, svabhāvaḥ. Now, how does one understand this svabhāvaḥ? The svabhāvaḥ is explained in the next shloka. So the next shloka says, prakāśo'rkasya toyasya śaityam agneryathoṣṇatā. 3 examples given. Prakāśo'rkasya. I know of couple of Bengali friends where their name is, one person's name is Orko and the other person's name is Orkendo. Orko, actually, they're saying it in Bengali accent, what they're actually trying to say is Arka. Arka means Surya. But the next name that I said, that was confusing because it is Arkendu. Arka means Surya and Indu means Chandra. And his name has both. So maybe it's like a perfect balance of, Shita, Ushna, both there. So what is the svabhāvaḥ? Now, what is svabhāvaḥ? Svabhāvaḥ is that which cannot be lost ever. Because of the influence of impact of time, space, experience, that which cannot be lost is called its nature, svabhāvaḥ. Whereas the guna, it is purely dependent. The gunas can increase, decrease, be absent. I'll give you an example. You have a mug of coffee or a bucket of coffee. Tall, grande, venti, the big size. नहा सकता है कोई उसमें आसान से. It's a swimming pool in your hand of coffee. And it is obvious you cannot be like dumping that whole 32 ounce immediately. It is like, then your stomach is like Mahasagar if it can accommodate in one gulp. Usually we are not accustomed, we are not made for that kind of a capacity. Usually. अमेरिका में 20-30 साल से हैं स्वामी जी, आदत हो गया तो ठीक है. So you sip a little in the car, then you go to the office, keep sipping it a little and it becomes lukewarm. You get into your job, then somewhere around 10:30 time, no, I was not yawning, the little lethargy comes. Then you take this bucket, put it in the microwave, again it becomes hot, again you bring that hot beverage and then start sipping again. By the time it is lunch, it is again lukewarm. So what is happening? The example that is given here, toyasya, the water by nature is very cool to touch. But the heatness of it is an acquired property. That acquired property is called guna. That which is not its own original nature, that acquired property is called its guna. That can come, go, be absent. it can be reinitiated. Right? But whereas svabhāvaḥ can never be lost. Svabhāvaḥ is always present. Yatha prakāśo'rkasya, the light of the sun. It may be dark for us because the earth has rotated itself away. It does not mean that the sun has turned its light off. He is always illumining. The next example I have already explained. Toyasya śaityam. Agnehe ushnata. The ability of that fire to be hot. See, when you talk about chilies, green chilies, serrano peppers, habanero peppers, ghost peppers, we find it, right? That sometimes they are hot, sometimes they are not. You think that it is not hot and you put it and that thing turns so tasty. I'm talking from my state. But I have brahmacharyans who are like, I tie a serrano on the dining table and they'll feel it's too hot, right? Because it is hanging there. For them, they are turning red, they are turning poor things. So they have more and more of coolant. Like in the engine, they add coolant. In the food also, these kids here add coolants. Dahi. Keep pouring it into there as much as required to make it, mellow it down, because it has turned out that spicy hot. That is, it goes up and down. Nobody can ever say that fire in India was hot, fire in US is not hot. Bananas in India may be tasty, bananas here may be not tasty. Mangoes there may be tasty, mangoes here may not be tasty. The taste aspect of it is a guna, which is an attribute, which is coming, going, aata jata hai wo. But the svabhāvaḥ, swarupa, that cannot keep coming and going. That which stays permanent, it's called its svabhāvaḥ. And agnehe ushnata. Wherever there is fire, there will be heat. Right? Similarly, svabhāvaḥ, whose svabhāvaḥ? Atma chaitanyasya. Svabhāvaḥ saccidānandanityanirmalatātmanaḥ. This Atman. What is its nature? Its nature is of the following. Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nitya, Nirmala. Knowing this as my true nature and it being verily the Brahman is called moksha. If not, I don't know what you have attained. Because we keep using in English for everything, Oh, I just realized, Mahatma, that I forgot to turn the fire under the milk that I had put on the stove. But I realized it now. We keep getting these moments of realizations. So when we say moksha as realization, we are not talking of these temporary mokshas or temporary realizations. So we should be very clear. What do we call as moksha? You cannot define as something else as moksha. Moksha is only at that point where the buddhi is completely come to understand without any erroneous habitual patterns or forgetfulness of its own true nature. It has clear, distinct clarity. And what about that? That it is Sacchidananda Nirmala Nitya Vastu. So what is Sacchidananda? In Advaita Makaranda, I love that author. Usually there is, you test the first ball, second ball, and then try a little, get acclimatized, and then, start hitting the ball to 4 and 6. This author comes, opening statement is out of the park. The very first statement, very boldly he makes. I love that prachandata in his way of presentation. He says, Aham asmi sadabhami kadachin naham apriyaha. Therefore, I am Sacchidananda. Aham asmi. I exist. So by that definition, all that which changes, perishes, is bound by time, is not my true nature. Sat vastu. Sat means existential principle. Everything that which we experience, we can experience only if it is supported by that existence. Divya made a good point. She said, even the concept of nothingness and void can be understood because I can experience it as it is being supported by this existential principle. Sometimes the erroneousness, like we were in this conference in Vibhuti, Chinmay Vibhuti. It's a very sprawling 90-acre property. So just going 2 rounds of it, you are tired. So each program was in a different corner, then lunch, breakfast, dinner. So afternoon, most of us would feel little tired. So we would sleep, get a cup of tea after we wake up, and then there is a question answer session. And usually people used to come late. Brahmacharyans and Swamins only. We would come late. But, we were 4 or 5 of us. We enter the hall and it was already 3:30. 3:30 to 4:30 was the discussion time or the question answer time. We entered and one of us said, "Arey, ye kya bhai? Koi nahi hai." The rest 3 looked at him. "Ye hum bhoot hai kya?" We are there. But he has taken us as the tadatmyata, the identification is so strong that he considered this as one unit. What he meant was, other than this, there was nobody. Even when we recognize the nothingness, it is this Atma Chaitanya which is providing the substratum of existential reality. Therefore, we are able to recognize it. Sat, a very subtle concept. Chit. Aham asmi sada bhami. I am always illumining. The body might feel tired, the face may look withdrawn, tired, beaten up. That is the guna of the sharira. Sharira guna it is. It is the sharira dharma that it has to get tired. But that which is illumining that tiredness, its kanti cannot be reduced. Its glow cannot be reduced. It recognizes, it understands, it knows every single thing. Chit Swarupa, Jnana Swarupa. Aham asmi sadabhami. Kadachit na aham apriyaha. There is never a point of time where I can never not love myself. Oh, Swamiji, I don't like my profile from the right side. I only like it from... The profile is of who? Is of the face, not you. I'm frustrated with my lack of focus or lack of attention, lack of this, lack of that. I'm not happy with myself. So that is the āpādita lakshana. You are superimposing the mind which is speculating itself up and down, that you are forcing it on yourself. That is not your nature. That which is illumining these ups and downs, that is your nature. When I say, I am, who is it that is claiming it? There are pseudo-claimers. If you have a property back in India and you have not tended to it in last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, there will be many people that will put their fence on it and put a banner on it saying, claiming that it is theirs. But you have the papers. Nobody else can snatch it. How many ever claimants may be there? Similarly, there are too many claimants. In Das Bodh, Samartha Ramdas ji says something very beautiful and peculiar. He says, the house that you build, everybody thinks that it is theirs. The builder who has built, when he comes with his probable customers, he would point at the house that you are living in. You claim that it is yours. He says, ye ghar apna hi tha. It's our house only. We built it. The mason who was working there, he says, this house, our house only. The bank definitely stakes a claim. As long as you are paying the mortgage. So far understood. The next two examples are the hilarious part. He says, the lizard which is living on the corner, it also claims, ye ghar apun ka hai. The next claimant, he says, that thief who has marked the house for his strike, he also says, this house, our house today. So whose house is it? Similarly, this body, mind, intellect is not my swarupa. And what is it that I cannot ever not love? Is my own self. Why? It is of the nature of ananda. I may dislike the body, I may dislike my mind's functioning, I may dislike my buddhi, I may dislike my habits, I may dislike all of this. Good. It is not you. And because it is not you, you can bend it, break it, remake it. But the swarupa, svabhāvaḥ, you can never abandon. That is of the nature of supreme bliss. Ananda. Take your own time. You have to clean each layer of vasana. Take your own time. कोई जल्दी नहीं है. आएगा, आएगा. One by one. Why? There is never a point where you and I ever cease to exist. Nitya vastu. Because it is eternal, it is all pervading as well. Because it is not limited by time, space, or location. Nitya vastu. We often see that which is kept for a long time, it usually is getting, it becomes stale, it becomes rancid, it becomes putrefied. It changes. Swarupa doesn't change. Therefore, it is always nirmala. There is no malinya, there is no aberrations. It is always pure. Therefore, we need not say ātmashuddhi. In puja, we say ātmashuddhyartam, right? That ātmashuddhi is the shuddhi of the lower self, the identified self, right? Ātmashuddhyartam. That is the nature of my true self. Now, further explanation on it, we will see it next week. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Sorry, I took 7 minutes extra. I didn't realize. Sorry about that. Hari Om.